You know that feeling when you push all your chips to the center of the table?
Oh, yeah. The absolute point of no return.
Right. It's a very specific environment you picture. Like a smoky casino, a roulette wheel spinning, maybe a really high-stakes poker game.
You expect the gambler to be sweating, staring down the odds.
Exactly. Because they know that one single tiny miscalculation means losing absolutely everything.
It's the ultimate binary outcome. I mean,
Yeah.
you either hit the jackpot or you walk out into the cold night with empty pockets.
Yeah.
The adrenaline really comes from the finality of it.
Right, right. But then you step out of the casino and into the world of international football, specifically the group stages of a World Cup.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
And suddenly that casino looks like child's play. Because in football, we're looking at a tactical landscape that is infinitely more complex. The gambles aren't just with plastic chips. They are with the hopes, the identity, and the, literal collective mood of an entire nation.
They really are. And the most fascinating part of tournament football is that sometimes the biggest gamble of all is the decision to look at the roulette wheel, look at your opponent, and just decide together not to spin it at all.
Right. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a 0-0 draw that has completely, and I mean completely, split the world in half.
It really has.
We're talking about the final Group D match of the 2026 FIFA World Cup between Australia, the Socceroos, and Paraguay. If you read the international papers today, there's some heavy critical analysis out of the Voice of Emirates or The Sun in the UK.
Yeah, they did not hold back.
No, they didn't. You're seeing this match described with words like shameful, collusion, and an absolute farce. But if you look at the on-the-ground reports from SBS and The Guardian in Australia, it was a tactical masterclass that literally stopped a nation in its tracks.
It's a brilliant paradox. I mean, we have match data from FIFA, tactical breakdowns from Football 360, and just a wealth of cultural reporting. And all of these sources are pointing to two completely different realities.
Exactly. So today, our mission is to figure out how one scoreless game of soccer can be a national masterpiece and an international disgrace at the exact same time. We want to give you a true 360 view of this thing.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild ride.
So to understand how Australia secured this result and their ticket to the round of 32, we have to start with the massive risks taken before a ball was even kicked. Because Australian coach Tony Popovich did something that, on paper, looks completely unhinged.
Unhinged is a good word for it.
Right. Coming off a bitter 2-0 loss to the USA, he decided to make 6 changes to his starting 11. 6.
In a do-or-die match.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because making 6 changes in a game like that is it's like trying to change the engine of your car while driving down the highway at 100 miles an hour.
That's incredibly accurate. And to stretch that metaphor a bit, the tactical system of a football team is the engine. It relies entirely on timing, communication, and, muscle memory.
Right, knowing where the other guy is going to be.
Exactly. So if you swap out 6 different moving parts, 6 players who aren't used to operating together under that specific pressure, the whole system should, logically, stall out.
It should fail.
Yeah, one missed assignment, one miscommunication on an offside trap, and the engine blows. The tournament is over.
And it wasn't just that he swapped the parts, it's who he used for the replacement parts. He injected a shocking amount of youth into this pressure cooker environment. I mean, the kids literally took over.
They really did.
You have 18-year-old Lucas Harrington making his World Cup debut at center back. This is a kid who is already dodging rumors linking him to Barcelona, and Popovich just drops him into the center of the defense for the biggest game of his life.
Which, is a position that usually demands a decade of experience to master at the international level.
Right.
Center backs have to read the game, organize the line, and stay perfectly calm. Yet Harrington's distribution from the back was pinpoint.
Unbelievable.
But Popovich didn't stop there. He brought in Christian Volpato, the Sassuolo star, for his first start of the tournament, and he completely reshuffled the attacking line by starting teenager Nestor Irankunda up front.
Leaving far more experienced, battle-tested strikers just sitting on the bench in tracksuits.
Exactly, just watching.
Okay, so the personnel changes are wild enough, but then you dig into the tactical breakdowns from Football 360, and it gets even stranger. Popovich made this wild positional quirk.
Oh, the wingbacks.
Yes. He moved Jordan Boz over to the right side of the pitch just to accommodate the veteran Aziz Behich on the left. So you end up with 2 naturally left-footed players operating as the wingbacks. I mean, how does a team of teenagers actually execute such an unorthodox game plan without tripping over themselves?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it completely breaks the traditional geometry of the pitch, which is exactly why it worked.
Wait, how so?
So, when you play a strongly left-footed player like Boss on the right wing, his natural instinct isn't to run straight down the sideline to cross the ball with his weaker right foot.
Oh, because he favors his left.
Right. His instinct is to cut inside toward the center of the pitch onto his strong foot.
So instead of spreading the field, he's drifting into the middle.
Exactly. And when your wingback cuts inside, he drags the opposing fullback with him. This completely overloads the center of the midfield.
Wow.
Yeah. Paraguay's manager, Gustavo Alfaro, had set up his team expecting a traditional, wide-attacking Australian team. And suddenly, he has all these Australian bodies flooding the middle, passing in tight triangles.
Just dominating the center.
Right. And Alfaro actually came out after the match and admitted this. He praised Australia's combination of physicality, discipline, and speed. He even confessed he was forced to panic switch his entire formation to a back five just to plug those central gaps that Popovich had created.
That's incredible. He forced the opponent to blink first. And the stats completely back up how dominant this was.
Oh, completely.
Australia controlled the tempo. They had 12 attempts on goal compared to Paraguay's 7. And if we look at expected goals, or XG, Australia was sitting at 0.58, while Paraguay was way down at 0.25.
And for anyone who, isn't super deep into football analytics, expected goals doesn't just count the number of shots, it measures the mathematical quality of those chances.
Right.
It looks at historical data and says, okay, a shot from 30 yards out with 3 defenders in the way has a very low probability of going in, maybe a 0.02.
But a clear header from the penalty spot might be a 0.3.
Exactly. So an XG of 0.58 to 0.25 means Australia wasn't just shooting more, they were consistently creating much more dangerous, high-quality opportunities.
Mostly driven by Aiden O'Neill, right? Because he was absolutely pulling the strings in the midfield, eventually winning player of the match.
He was everywhere.
But despite all that dominance and all that tactical genius, it still came down to the absolute wire. In stoppage time, Paraguay's Mauricio found a pocket of space on the edge of the box and fired a shot.
Oh, man, that moment.
I was watching this live, and my heart genuinely stopped. If that goes in, the whole narrative changes instantly.
The gamble fails, the kids get blamed, Popovich is probably fired.
Yeah. But it didn't go in. Patrick Beach, the Australian goalkeeper, pulls off a phenomenal, heart-stopping reaction, save right at the death to preserve the 0-0 scoreline.
Just grounded, pure relief.
So Popovich pulls off this tactical miracle with a bunch of teenagers. He outsmarts Gustavo Alfaro. He gets the result he needs to advance to the knockouts. You would expect him to walk into the post-match press conference, popping champagne, taking victory laps, and just soaking in the glory.
You really would.
But instead, he walks into the media room looking for a fight.
The contrast was incredibly jarring. The tension in that room was palpable. Popovich didn't just defend his choices, he actively turned the blowtorch back on the Australian media.
He really did. Here's where it gets really interesting. He sat down and essentially mocked the analysts. He said, and I quote, "Now we make 6 changes, and now you ask me again, why are those 6 in and the other one's out?"
Yeah, he was furious.
That will continue because that's the analysis that we have back home. He was so incredibly blunt, he hammered home his core philosophy that no one is entitled to this shirt.
Right.
But I have to ask, why? Why is he picking a fight with the media right after making history? Is the pressure of managing national expectations actually heavier than managing the players on the pitch?
In modern international football,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I don't think Popovich was just losing his temper here. This is a very calculated psychological tactic.
You think it was intentional?
I do. Look at who he just played. 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
Players who are highly active on social media, who read the headlines, who feel the weight of an entire nation's expectations.
Right.
By walking into that press conference and acting combative, Popovich intentionally makes himself the story. He becomes the lightning rod.
Oh, wow. So he's deliberately drawing the fire. He wants the headlines the next day to be angry Popovich slams media instead of teenager Harrington struggles with pressure.
Precisely. He is absorbing the anxiety of the nation so his kids don't have to. And it speaks to a much broader vision, really. Popovich is begging the media and the fans to understand the mechanics of building a national team.
Which is...
Well, you don't just manage the 11 guys on the pitch, right? You manage a rotating cycle of about 70 players over a 4 to 8 year period. You have to develop them. You can't just react emotionally game to game.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and he explicitly pointed out that people expect this young core to be a special group in 4 to 8 years when they mature. But his argument was, why can't they be a special group right now? He sees their resilience in training, even if the public is terrified of their inexperience.
Okay, so Popovich is fiercely defending his team's intent to win. He's demanding respect for his young players, and he's playing the role of the protective shield.
Mm-hmm.
But while he is doing all of this defensive work in the press room, the rest of the watching world is viewing this 0-0 draw through a much darker lens.
Oh yeah, the global reaction was the polar opposite of the Australian relief. It was visceral anger.
Fierce international outrage. The Voice of Emirates published a piece that did not hold back for a second, using terms like shameful and accusing the teams of blatant collusion.
Heavy words.
And they weren't alone. You had pundits on FS1 in the States and writers for The Sun in the UK echoing this exact sentiment. Fans online were calling it the worst match in World Cup history. They called it a farce, a glorified training session that was completely devoid of fair play.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for you and me watching at home? Because we have to be careful here. Are critics actually accusing these teams of a secret backroom deal? Or is this just the natural, unavoidable math of tournament football where neither side wants to risk committing professional suicide?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, to really understand the global anger, you have to look at the cold, hard mathematics of this specific expanded World Cup format.
Okay, break that down for us.
All right, so in 2026, we moved to a massive 48-team tournament. That means there are 12 groups of 4. To get to the knockout stage, the top 2 teams in each group automatically advance.
Which is standard.
Standard, yes.
Yeah.
But to fill out the bracket of 32, the 8 best third-place teams across all the groups also advance.
Right, which fundamentally changes the math of survival.
It changes everything. Going into the final 10 minutes of this match, Australia is sitting on 4 points. A draw guarantees them second place in Group D. They avoid the heavy hitters and advance to play the runner-up of Group G.
Okay, so Australia getting a point makes total sense. They are perfectly happy with the draw. But what about Paraguay? Because they finished 3rd in the group with a -2 goal difference. Why on earth are they settling for a draw? Why aren't they throwing everything forward to get a win and secure second place?
Because of that new 48-team math. Historically, a third-place finish with a negative goal difference might send you packing. But in this expanded format, having 4 points is essentially a mathematical force field. It virtually guarantees you will be one of those 8 best third-place teams.
Yeah, I see.
So put yourself in Gustavo Alfaro's shoes. If you order your team to push forward and hunt for a goal, you leave your defense exposed. If Australia counters and scores, Paraguay drops to 3 points, and suddenly they are likely eliminated.
Wow. So the risk of losing is so catastrophic that the reward of winning becomes mathematically irrelevant.
Exactly. It's a classic prisoner's dilemma applied to football. As the clock ticks down, both teams realize that attacking is mutual destruction, while doing nothing is mutual survival. So they just stop playing.
I get the math. I really do. It's pure game theory. But as a fan, someone who maybe paid hundreds of dollars for a ticket or woke up at 3 in the morning to watch on TV, that is incredibly frustrating to watch.
Oh, absolutely.
It feels like they hacked the tournament rules rather than actually playing the sport. It feels like a violation of the unwritten contract between the players and the audience, which says, we will try to win.
And that is exactly where the debate lies. I mean, it all depends on what you believe the primary purpose of a World Cup match is. From a purely strategic, professional standpoint, Tony Popovich and Gustavo Alfaro did exactly what they are paid millions of dollars to do.
Survive in advance.
Survive in advance. They navigated the rules as they were written by FIFA. You play the tournament, not just the isolated 90 minutes.
So don't hate the player, hate the game. Or in this case, hate the 48-team group stage formatting.
Right. But, and this is important, the fans and the international media have a completely valid counter-argument. A World Cup is supposed to be the pinnacle of gladiatorial sporting competition. People want passion. They want risk.
They want drama.
Exactly. They want to see teams fighting tooth and nail for national pride. So when you see 2 teams casually passing the ball sideways around the midfield circle for the final 10 minutes because a spreadsheet tells them it's optimal, it shatters the illusion of competition.
It really does.
It raises profound questions about the integrity of the system. I mean, if FIFA's format actively incentivizes non-competition, then the system itself is arguably flawed.
It's the conflict between cold logic and the emotional spirit of sports. But here's the craziest part of all of this.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the critics in Washington or London or the Emirates thought about the aesthetics of the match or the ethics of the game theory back in Australia, absolutely none of that mattered.
None of it.
The sheer existence of this game caused an absolute cultural phenomenon.
The domestic reaction was just a complete rejection of the international controversy. It was pure, unadulterated joy.
Because of the time zones, this do-or-die match fell perfectly during Friday working hours, Australian Eastern Standard Time. And I want you, listening to this right now, to picture something.
Set the scene.
You know that feeling of being stuck in a mandatory Zoom meeting on a Friday afternoon, and you have a game secretly streaming on your second monitor?
We all been there.
Right. You're trying to keep a straight face while your team is attacking. Now imagine an entire country doing that simultaneously, except they aren't at their desks. They are in the pub.
The Guardian and SBS painted this incredibly vivid picture of the atmosphere. The collision of modern remote work culture and die-hard sports fandom.
It was amazing. Pubs packed to the brim with fans dressed head to toe in green and gold, nursing pints of Guinness right alongside their open, glowing work laptops.
Too good.
It's like the Melbourne Cup, the famous horse race that historically stops the nation, but adapted for a modern soccer team.
Yeah.
We have these amazing specific anecdotes from the reporting. You had two small business owners, Rick and Jamie Heyman, literally working from the Golden Barley pub in Sydney. They were doing their administrative spreadsheets alongside their staff, entirely distracted by an 18-year-old center back deciding their national fate.
It creates a shared communal tension that you just don't get working from home alone.
Absolutely. And at that exact same pub, standing next to the laptops, you had a fan named Nick wearing an authentic, vintage 1974 Socceroos jersey.
Oh, wow.
Which is incredibly poignant because 1974 is the very first year Australia ever qualified for a World Cup.
That's a great detail.
You have the deep history standing shoulder to shoulder with the modern remote worker. But my absolute favorite story from the SBS coverage was a mother named Sophie.
Right, the mom at the pub.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was sitting at the Vic on the Park pub, quietly doing her work emails on her phone while she let her year 11 son, Oscar, skip school to watch the match with her.
I love that.
And when the reporter asked her why, she simply justified it by saying the match was of national importance, and she wanted him to hear the sound of a pub lifting when the national team did well.
And that energy wasn't just contained to the quiet pub corners either. The public squares were overflowing. Down in Melbourne, Federation Square had 7,500 fans packed together.
7,500.
Yes. People had arrived hours early in the cold. They were playing flip cup to pass the time. And when the national anthem finally played, 7 flares were set off into the sky.
Wow.
It was ecstatic, beautiful chaos. Meanwhile, in Canberra, you had politicians like Senator David Pocock hosting watch parties, specifically pointing out how the diversity of the Socceroos squad perfectly mirrors the modern Australian identity.
And it's so fascinating how all of this cultural joy ties perfectly back to our very first point about Tony Popovich's tactical gamble.
It really does. Former Socceroo Craig Foster was actually out in the crowd at Federation Square, and he was raving about the squad's depth and Popovich's brilliant management.
Because the fans on the square intuitively understood the stakes of the gamble.
Exactly. When you think about the demographics, the 18 and 19-year-olds that Popovich trusted on the pitch, players like Lucas Harrington and Nisturi Irankunda, are the exact same age as the teenagers like Oscar who were skipping school to watch them in the pub.
Oh, wow. I didn't even put that together. They are literally watching their exact peers represent them on the global stage.
Yeah. What the Australian public was witnessing and celebrating was a real-time generational shift. The youth on the pitch were directly inspiring the youth in the stands. It's a passing of the torch.
That's incredible.
And that narrative is so incredibly powerful that it completely overrides any international criticism about the aesthetics of a 0-0 draw. The fans in the Golden Barley pub don't care about the global prisoner's dilemma, and they certainly don't care if a pundit in London thinks it was a boring watch.
Right. They just care that they made it.
They care that a new generation of Australian kids just proved they belong on the world stage.
So we've gone on quite a journey today to understand this one single match. We watched Coach Tony Popovich gamble his entire tournament on a handful of teenagers, completely rewiring his tactical engine at 100 miles an hour to outsmart Paraguay.
A massive gamble.
We saw him fight off his own domestic media in a fiery press conference, acting as a human shield for those same young players. We explored the fierce international storm of collusion allegations born from the cold, hard, unavoidable math of an expanded tournament format.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we saw how a mathematically pragmatic, unglamorous 0-0 draw brought an entire nation to a joyful laptop juggling standstill. Australia survived the gamble, and they are off to Dallas to face the Group G runner-up.
It really is the ultimate story of risk, resilience, and the fascinating, sometimes ugly friction between strategic survival and sporting entertainment.
Definitely. But before we let you go, we want to leave you with the final lingering question to mull over. We talked about how the math of this massive 4018 World Cup allowed and even encouraged this mutually beneficial, risk-averse game.
Right.
As tournament formats across all sports continue to expand to include more teams and more safety nets for third-place finishers, will this become the new normal?
It's the existential question for the future of broadcasting. If the mathematical structure of modern sports inadvertently kills the do-or-die entertainment value that fans demand, how long will the fans keep tuning in?
Exactly. If the casino rules change so that you're guaranteed to keep your chips as long as you just stand there and refuse to play the hand.
Eventually, the spectators are going to leave the building.
Exactly. Well, if you want to dive deeper into the tactical breakdowns or read those great cultural reports from the pubs, definitely check out the stack of sources we've linked. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. See you next time.